From Hulk Hogan cutting his daughter Brooke out of his will,
He's capable of anything. Let's just put it that way.
to Vince McMahon's cold, hostile relationship with Shane,
And Vince, who is right here.
and Dusty Rhodes abandoning his son over a woman, these WWE legends didn't just fail as parents. They disowned their own kids for some of the most unbelievable reasons. Hulk Hogan and Brooke Hogan. Behind the scenes, the relationship between the six-time WWE champion and his daughter Brooke Hogan crumbled into one of wrestling's most devastating estrangements. The breaking point arrived in 2015 when leaked audio recordings from Hogan's sex tape lawsuit revealed him using vile racial slurs while discussing Brooke's dating life, specifically expressing disgust over the possibility of her dating a black man.
I'm not a double standard type guy. I'm racist to a point.
The tape caught Hogan admitting he's racist while simultaneously saying he'd tolerate a wealthy black partner, the hypocrisy so thick you could body slam it.
The kid is a multi-billionaire, but the thing is, now they start doing these nasty emails, so somewhat of a relationship. And so now Brooke don't talk to anybody.
WWE immediately fired him, scrubbing his name from company history until a controversial 2018 reinstatement following his apology tour. The scandal represented the culmination of years of family dysfunction that had been brewing since Hogan's bitter 2009 divorce from Linda, which was triggered by his affair with Christiane Plant, who happened to be Brooke's best friend. The betrayal cut deep, leaving Brooke feeling doubly violated by her father's infidelity with someone she trusted. Throughout the reality television era of Hogan Knows Best, the family projected an image of togetherness while cracks formed beneath the surface. Hogan's controlling behavior over Brooke's music career and personal relationships created tension that only intensified after the divorce split the family into warring factions. The racist comments, however, proved to be the final straw that shattered any remaining hope of reconciliation. By 2023, the relationship had deteriorated to complete no-contact status, with Brooke explicitly requesting removal from Hogan's will to avoid any post-death legal entanglements with a family she described as toxic. The decision came during a high-risk pregnancy when Brooke needed to prioritize her mental health and distance herself from the emotional toll of her father's behavior. In March 2025, Brooke publicly addressed allegations of verbal, mental, and physical abuse she endured since childhood, detailing a vicious pattern that robbed her of self-esteem and required years of therapy to overcome.
He's capable of anything. Let's just put it that way.
When Hogan died on July 24, 2025, at age 71 from acute myocardial infarction, the estate worth approximately $5 to $25 million went entirely to son Nick, with Brooke receiving nothing from the will itself. She did benefit from a separate life insurance trust, which she plans to use for her twin children's college education. Brooke viewed Hogan's body privately for closure and requested an autopsy amid suspicions about the circumstances of his death, investigations that were ongoing as of August 2025. While Hogan's racist rants destroyed his relationship with Brooke, another wrestling patriarch took family dysfunction to even darker depths through his treatment of his own flesh and blood. Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon. Vince McMahon, the iron-fisted chairman who transformed WWE from a regional territory into a global entertainment colossus worth billions, applied his cutthroat business philosophy to his own son with devastating consequences. Shane McMahon, groomed from birth to be part of the family empire, spent decades seeking his father's approval through increasingly dangerous in-ring performances and innovative business proposals, only to be repeatedly rejected in favor of his sister Stephanie and brother-in-law Triple H. The relationship between father and son became a masterclass in how ego, favoritism, and treating family as corporate assets can destroy even the strongest bonds. What began as typical father-son collaboration in the wrestling business evolved into a bitter estrangement marked by professional exile, public humiliation, and Shane's eventual banishment from the company he helped build. The breaking point in their relationship crystallized during a 2003 backstage argument that Paul Heyman described in chilling detail on the Netflix docuseries Mr. McMahon.
Right here.
During a creative disagreement, Vince escalated the confrontation by handing Shane a knife, pointing to his own heart, and telling his son to stick it there if he wanted his way.
things my way at all.
The moment exposed the toxic dynamic at the core of their relationship, where Vince transformed ordinary business disputes into twisted tests of loyalty and masculinity. Shane's innovative ideas, including a 2001 proposal to acquire UFC that Vince dismissively rejected, were repeatedly shot down despite later proving prescient. The UFC, which WWE could have purchased for a fraction of its current value, eventually merged with WWE under TKO Group Holdings in 2023, a deal that validated Shane's vision 2 decades too late. Vince's favoritism towards Stephanie and Triple H became increasingly obvious as Shane was sidelined from key creative roles despite his executive success, including spearheading the 1999 WCW acquisition that saved WWE from bankruptcy. The on-screen 2016 storyline where Vince stomped on a family photo and declared he would cut Shane from his will in favor of Stephanie wasn't just entertainment, it was art imitating the painful reality of their relationship. Behind the scenes, Vince fired Shane multiple times, including after a botched 2022 Royal Rumble appearance and again following WrestleMania 39, leading to Shane's quiet exit with a no-compete clause. The insane reason for this disownment through professional exile was Vince's patriarchal ego and his pathological need to control every aspect of the family business, treating his son not as an heir, but as a disposable employee who could be terminated on a whim. Shane's 2009 departure from WWE, following years of creative clashes and burnout, represented the first major fracture in their bond. During his years away from WWE, Shane built a successful career as CEO of You On Demand in China and later joined International Management Group as a producer for major sporting events, including the Super Bowl. Grizzly Smith and his children. Smith's children, including WWE Hall of Famer Jake the Snake Roberts, former WWF Women's Champion Rockin' Robin, and wrestler Sam Houston, survived horrors that make other wrestling family dysfunctions look like minor squabbles. Jake's story begins with an extremely troubled and deeply traumatic family background, one he later detailed in Beyond the Mat and Dark Side of the Ring. According to Jake, his parents' relationship involved serious misconduct and a massive imbalance of power, leading to a shotgun wedding meant to hold the family together. This painful origin set the tone for the environment he and his siblings grew up in. Inside the home, Smith controlled everyone through manipulation, intimidation, and elaborate lies. He often staged dramatic injuries, wearing neck braces or pretending he was badly hurt just to keep his children emotionally off balance. Young Jake would lie awake crying, believing his father was on the brink of death, unaware it was part of Smith's mind games. Physical discipline was just as harsh. Even small mistakes could trigger explosive reactions, teaching the children early that fear and violence were the rules of the house. In Smith's world, obedience wasn't encouraged, it was demanded, and breaking that rule came with consequences that stayed with Jake for the rest of his life. Robin's testimony about repeated sexual abuse starting at age 8, including penetration, represents the darkest chapter in this family's suffering. When her mother, Marcia, discovered the abuse in 1978, she fled with Robin but eventually returned, enabling the cycle to continue through a toxic combination of financial dependence and Smith's manipulative control. Smith's pattern of predatory behavior extended beyond his immediate family, with backstage rumors and Jim Cornette's accounts on Dark Side of the Ring describing Smith's reputation for pursuing underage ring girls and fans during his WWF agent tenure in the 1980s. Sam Houston, who idolized Smith and joined the Road at age 16 in 1979, witnessed his father picking up teenage girls during territory loops, with parental goodbyes that suggested a normalized culture of exploitation that Smith helped perpetuate. The family's complete estrangement from Smith, while not a formal legal disownment, represented mutual survival through cutting all ties with their abuser. Jake confronted Smith multiple times about the abuse, only to be gaslit with Smith's denials and blame shifting that accused his children of lying. Jake entered wrestling in 1974 driven by hatred for his father, finding success as a WWF Intercontinental Champion from 1986 to 1992, despite the emotional baggage he carried. His addictions to cocaine and heroin, culminating in a near-fatal overdose in 2013, traced directly back to the childhood trauma Smith inflicted. Robin quit wrestling in 1990 after winning the WWF Women's title, unable to continue in an industry that reminded her of her father's abuse. Sam's own struggles with substance abuse led to 10 years in prison from 2000 2005 to 2015 for multiple DUIs, his demons similarly rooted in the horrors of his childhood. Smith died on June 12, 2010 at age 77 from Alzheimer's-related complications in Panama City, Florida, unmourned by most of his children and completely unrepentant for the destruction he caused. While Smith's predatory abuse represents wrestling's darkest family crime, another legend's tyrannical control over his sons created a different kind of nightmare wrapped in dynasty-building obsession. Fritz von Erich and his sons. The 6'4", 260-pound legend, known for his devastating iron claw submission hold, pushed his 5 surviving sons, Kevin, David, Kerry, Mike, and Chris, into wrestling careers that ended with 4 deaths and 1 sole survivor bearing the weight of unimaginable loss. The nightmare's foundation was laid with the March 7, 1959 death of 6-year-old Jack Jr., who touched a live wire under a neighbor's trailer in a Niagara Falls park while Fritz wrestled in Cleveland, was shocked unconscious and drowned face first in melting snow. Fritz, learning of the tragedy via payphone, continued working that night and channeled his grief into an iron determination that no other son would ever be hurt, which ironically manifested as pushing them into football and wrestling as supposedly unbreakable athletes. He bought a 115-acre Texas ranch for protection and homeschooled the boys in isolation, banning outside influences including therapy, which he viewed as weakness. The military-style workouts and emotional detachment created an environment where Fritz became their god, honorable but seeing emotion as failure, setting up a dynamic where love was conditional on ring success. Fritz's favoritism and control intensified as WCCW boomed in the 1980s, with Kerry positioned as the golden boy and heir, while Kevin felt sidelined as merely reliable. Mike and Chris were viewed as replacements for Jack Jr., with Mike deemed too soft and Chris too young, creating resentment and feelings of inadequacy. The breaking point arrived with David's February 7, 1984 death in Tokyo at age 25, officially from acute enteritis, but surrounded by heroin overdose rumors the family denied. Fritz flew to Japan stone-faced, telling Kevin to suck it up because they were Von Erichs, refusing counseling and instead blaming David's weakness while guilting the survivors not to fail like their brother did. This twisted grief turned into tyranny as Fritz viewed his remaining sons as property for his NWA dream. The curse, as it became known despite Kevin's rejection of supernatural explanations, claimed Mike on April 12, 1987 through placidal overdose suicide at age 23 after toxic shock syndrome from 1985 surgery complications left him with brain damage. Fritz pushed him into a Japan tour despite begging for rest, then scripted Mike's death as a heart attack storyline before privately blaming his selfishness. Chris, battling depression and asthma, felt invisible as Fritz mocked his fragility, contributing to his September 12, 1991 suicide at age 21 by shooting himself. Kerry, the WCWA champion who achieved brief WWF Intercontinental glory from 1990 to 1992, hid his 1986 motorcycle crash foot amputation under tights at Fritz's insistence, accelerating cocaine addiction that combined with federal painkiller charges to drive him to suicide by gunshot on February 18, 1993 at age 33. Fritz reportedly responded to Kerry's death by saying he quit on them, erecting an angel marker but offering no emotional warmth. Fritz's final years saw him divorce wife Doris in July 1992 after 42 years, blaming her softness for the tragedies, leaving her heartbroken and isolated. As the Von Erichs' tragedy unfolded in Texas, another wrestling father's abandonment played out differently, through decades of silence and denial that left his son feeling like an afterthought. Jerry the King Lawler and Brian Christopher Lawler. Born from Lawler's extramarital affair with Pam Langford during his first marriage to Kay McNulty from 1967 to 1977, Brian entered the world on January 10, 1972. As the illegitimate child, his father would spend years denying on television while privately providing sporadic bookings but little emotional support. The insane reason for this cold relationship wasn't explosive conflict, but rather Lawler's decision to transform his absence into a running comedy bit, publicly ribbing and denying their connection for years on USWA and WWF television, turning real-life rejection into entertainment that amplified Brian's feelings of being an outsider in an industry where family legacies are currency. He wasn't really around Bryan, who grew up primarily with his mother in Memphis, while Jerry maintained his grueling 200-plus dates per year schedule across territories. The absenteeism created a frosty dynamic from birth, with Bryan idolizing his father from afar by attending matches but receiving no overt acknowledgement, fostering deep resentment as half-brother Kevin, raised in Lawler's home, bonded more closely with their dad. When Bryan secretly trained and debuted masked in 1988 as Nebula in USWA's Twilight Zone tag team, he and Lawler mutually agreed Bryan would work as Too Sexy Bryan Christopher to obscure their lineage and avoid nepotism accusations in the territory Lawler co-owned with Jerry Jarrett. The kayfabe denial gimmick that defined their relationship in the 1990s saw Bryan repeatedly confronting Lawler on screen, screaming for his father to admit their connection while Lawler denied it vehemently, claiming he had no son. A famous 1993 promo featured Bryan accusing Lawler of having a midlife crisis with girlfriend Stacy the Cat Carter, only for Lawler to dismiss him entirely. Jim Ross's on-air jabs amplified the rib, repeatedly noting how Bryan looked just like Lawler, but Jerry maintained the denial until Paul Heyman finally outed the truth on 1997 Raw. While Lawler believed this tough love approach would force Bryan to earn success without riding the family name, the gimmick stung deeply, echoing the childhood rejection Bryan felt every time his father chose the road over being present. Bryan's WWF debut in 1997 as a light heavyweight eventually evolved into the beloved Too Cool faction with Scotty 2 Hotty and Rikishi from 1999 to 2001, capturing WWF Tag Team Championship gold on May 29, 2000 against Edge and Christian. Despite this success, the underlying frost in their relationship persisted, manifesting in Bryan's 2011 Raw return where he turned heel, sided with Michael Cole against Lawler at WrestleMania 27, and aired semi-shoot grievances about his father never caring for him. The storyline highlighted real estrangement as Bryan's substance abuse issues with alcohol and pills emerged after his 2001 release, tied to unaddressed feelings of paternal abandonment that Lawler only sporadically attempted to address through occasional indie collaborations. Bryan's tragic death on July 29, 2018 at age 46, while incarcerated in Hardeman County Jail following a July 7 DUI arrest, devastated Lawler, who disputed the official suicide ruling after his son was found hanged with shoelaces. Bryan had been assaulted on July 28 with an open eye wound and possible concussion, but was isolated without proper medical care before being discovered unresponsive. Lawler filed a wrongful death lawsuit in July 2019 seeking over $3 million against Hardeman County and Sheriff Doolin for negligence, including failed addiction treatment and inadequate post-assault isolation. From Lawler's decades of denial to another legend's choice of wrestling glory over acknowledging his own blood, the pattern of absence continues. Bruno Sammartino and David Sammartino. Bruno Sammartino's relationship with eldest son, David Lugogo. Sammartino, born September 29, 1960, evolved from protective fatherhood into profound disappointment and lifelong estrangement rooted in Bruno's anti-drug crusade, clashing with David's defiance of paternal advice. Bruno explicitly forbade David from wrestling, urging college and a normal career to avoid comparisons and the industry's pitfalls, but David was drawn to the spotlight despite these warnings. The breaking point arrived during David's 1984 to 1987 WWF run when Vince McMahon Jr. lured Bruno back as a commentator with the hook of promoting David using the Sammartino legend. Bruno, then 49 and semi-retired, agreed reluctantly to manage and tag with David, hoping to help him despite reservations. Their WWF tenure included WrestleMania 1 in 1985, where David faced Brutus Beefcake in a match managed by Bruno that ended in disqualification after Bruno brawled with Johnny Valiant, sparking tag feuds against Beefcake and Valiant, as well as Randy Savage and Adrian Adonis. The devastating catalyst for Disowned came when David confessed to using steroids around 1986 to 1987 to bulk up and match the physiques of his contemporaries during wrestling's steroid era. Bruno, a vocal anti-drug advocate who criticized WWF's culture and later testified in McMahon's 1994 steroid trial, was devastated, viewing David's admission as betrayal betrayal of his clean image legacy. In a 1991 interview, Bruno raged about David unfortunately falling into that trap and getting into those drugs, believing WWF planned to use his son to discredit him. David's 1987 WWF firing after an arrest for punching a spitting fan sealed the rupture as Bruno quit in solidarity, severing ties with WWF until 2013, but more importantly cutting ties with David over what he perceived as weakness and failure. Post-1987 estrangement turned glacial as Bruno retired completely, becoming a critic of steroids, attitude-era content, and head trauma, while David wrestled indies, including UWF from 1987 to 1988 and WCW in 1996 for a boring 20-minute match against Dean Malenko before quitting by 1996. In a 1998 public statement, Bruno disowned David, saying he had been estranged from his son since retiring against David's wishes for a tag team, calling David a disappointment in interviews and lamenting his lack of charisma. Ted DiBiase echoed this sentiment in 2024, noting David was a nice kid but didn't have it, the indefinable star quality required for wrestling success. No reconciliation occurred before Bruno's death on April 18, 2018, at age 82 from heart failure, with Bruno's 2013 WWE Hall of Fame induction brokered by Triple H, excluding any mention of David. While Bruno's rigid principles destroyed his bond with David, another American Dream's absence created a different kind of family fracture through Road Warrior neglect. Dusty Rhodes and Dustin Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream who revolutionized professional wrestling through 3 NWA World Heavyweight Championship reigns and his innovative booking for Jim Crockett Promotions that shaped modern wrestling, maintained a complicated relationship with eldest son Dustin Patrick Runnels, better known as The Natural or Goldust, that oscillated between absentee fatherhood and years of complete estrangement. Born April 11, 1969, Dustin grew up idolizing his father while simultaneously resenting the Road Warrior lifestyle that kept Dusty perpetually absent. Raised primarily by first wife Sandra McHarg in Lubbock, Texas, while Dusty built his legend across territories. The insane reason for their multi-year fallout in the 1990s wasn't professional rivalry or betrayal, but rather Dusty's disapproval of Dustin's 1993 marriage to Terry Runnels, combined with a canceled golf outing due to her illness that escalated into a bitter rift lasting approximately 5 to 7 years. Dustin's childhood was marked by abandonment as Dusty's NWA commitments kept him on the road over 250 dates annually, leading young Dustin to beg his mother in the early 1980s to live with Dusty and second wife Michelle Rubio in Marietta, Georgia, only to find his father absent again. When Dustin moved in as a teenager, the dynamic soured further as Dusty forbade using Dusty Rhodes Jr. as a ring name, pushing him toward a normal life to avoid the nepotism pitfalls Dusty knew from territorial wrestling's grind. Dustin debuted in 1988 at age 19 in Florida Championship Wrestling, training under Dusty but resenting the pressure and micromanagement that mirrored Dusty's WCW booking role from 1988 to 1989. The breaking point exploded in 1993 when Dustin married Terry Runnels, who he met while she worked as a WCW makeup artist starting in 1990. Rumors swirled, some claiming Terry had dated Dusty first, with gossip from figures like Honky Tonk Man on a 2016 Reddit thread suggesting she was Dusty's ring rat before becoming Dustin's wife. Terry alleged in a 2008 Post and Courier interview that Dusty spread infidelity rumors, straining her marriage to Dustin and fueling his defensiveness about their relationship. The final straw came with a planned 1993 father-son golf outing that Dustin canceled due to Terry's illness, possibly miscarriage-related according to family lore, which Dustin interpreted as Dusty's spite toward his wife. In the 2023 A&E biography on Dusty Rhodes, Dustin recounted this as the last straw, sparking a heated argument where Dusty disapproved outright, telling Dustin she was bad news and demanding he end the relationship. Dustin's refusal to leave Terry led to years of no contact as Dusty emotionally disowned him, prioritizing his new family including younger son Cody, born 1985, to Michelle, daughter Teal, and stepdaughter Kristen, while continuing his WCW booking from 1991 to 1993. The frostiness intensified when Dustin jumped to WWE in 1995. 1995, where Vince McMahon re-gimmicked him as the androgynous Goldust character with gold bodysuit and sexual innuendos. Dusty loathed this transformation as ruining the Rhodes legacy, with Cody recalling in a 2022 Talk Is Jericho episode how shocked Dusty looked at Goldust's debut. During Dusty's sporadic WWF appearances from 1999 to 2001, he avoided joint appearances with Dustin, with their only scripted team-up coming at the 2013 Battleground pay-per-view alongside Cody against The Shield, though backstage remained tense. Reconciliation began in the mid-2000s as both returned to WWE orbits, with Dusty joining Creative in 2005 and subtly supporting Dustin's evolving Goldust character that became a beloved eccentric by the 2010s. A pivotal 2007 WWE Hall of Fame induction, with Dustin and Cody inducting Dusty, signaled truce, featuring Dustin tearfully calling his father his hero despite everything they endured. The thaw accelerated during Dustin's 2011 to 2013 rock bottom with substance abuse, when he called Dusty from a rainy rehab stint, naming him the first person he thought of for help. Dusty, drawing from his own 1980s excesses, urged sobriety, telling Dustin to get clean for you, the family, the dream, support that Dustin credits for. His 2013 recovery and Talk Is Jericho interviews. While Dusty's absenteeism and marriage disapproval eventually thawed into reconciliation, another wrestling patriarch's abandonment represented something far colder and more permanent. Rocky Johnson and Una Sparks. Rocky Johnson, the soulman who broke barriers as professional wrestling's first black NWA Georgia heavyweight champion in 1974, and alongside Tony Atlas, the first black WWF tag team champions in 1983, built a storied career across territories that masked a personal life riddled with infidelity and abandoned children. Among these forgotten offspring was Una Sparks, born circa 1949 in Cherrybrook, Nova Scotia, his eldest daughter from a premarital affair with 19-year-old Thelma Wright that Rocky chose to erase entirely from his narrative. The insane reason for Rocky's lifelong disownment of Una wasn't explosive conflict or public scandal, but rather his deliberate choice to abandon her for wrestling glory immediately after her conception, leaving Thelma as a single mother in poverty, while he built a public family man image with second wife Ada Mavia and their son Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, all without remorse or acknowledgement until DNA confirmed their bond in 2022, 2 years after Rocky's death. Rocky's origins in segregated Nova Scotia as Wade Douglas Bowles, born August 24, 1944 to domestic worker Lillian Gay and mill hand James Henry Bowles, saw him flee racism at age 16 for Toronto in 1960, training as a boxer before pivoting to wrestling under Jack Britton. There in 1964, he met Thelma Wright, a fellow black Nova Scotian factory worker new to the city, beginning a whirlwind 2-year romance fueled by shared roots and Rocky's charisma. The relationship lasted just long enough for Thelma to become pregnant before Rocky debuted professionally in 1966 as Drew Glasteau, touring Ontario and the United States, while leaving Thelma alone and unsupported. Una was born in May 1964 in Halifax after Thelma returned home to Cherrybrook, raised amid financial hardship and whispers of the absent wrestler father who provided nothing, no child support, no letters, just broken promises of visits that never materialized. Rocky's pattern of abandonment extended far beyond Una, fathering multiple children out of wedlock across territories including Trevor Edwards, born 1967 in Montreal, Paula Parsons, born 1964 in Toronto just 6 months before Una, and Lisa Purves in the 1970s in Edmonton, all revealed through 2022 DNA links coordinated by Uncle Ricky J. Bowles. This pattern amplified Una's erasure as Rocky, now performing as Soul Man, prioritized fame through 250-plus annual dates, while Thelma scraped by on welfare and factory wages in Halifax. Una attended segregated schools, excelling academically but internalizing the abandonment as not being worthy, leading to early therapy and profound self-doubt that would shadow her into adulthood. The frost deepened when Rocky met Ada Mavia in 1971 during tag matches, beginning an affair while still married to his first wife Una Sparks, a Toronto dancer he wed in 1966, despite knowing about daughter Una's existence. Dwayne was born May 2, 1972 during Rocky's marriage to wife Una Sparks, yet Rocky divorced divorced her amicably in 1978, according to his autobiography, and married Ada that year, integrating into the prestigious Anoa'i dynasty, while his biological daughter Una learned fragments via gossip. At age 10, a relative mentioned "Your dad's on TV," prompting Thelma to call Rocky Collect in 1974, seeking financial support, only for him to hang up mid-conversation, the last direct contact Una would ever have with her father during his lifetime. Rocky's 2019 autobiography, Solman romanticized his road life as freedom while admitting to affairs, but completely omitting Una, Thelma, and his other illegitimate children, framing his life as a heroic ascent from poverty rather than acknowledging the trail of abandoned families he left behind. When Rocky died, January 15, 2020, at age 75 from pulmonary embolism in Davie, Florida, his estate worth approximately $1 million went entirely to Atta and Dwayne, with no provisions for Una or any of his other unacknowledged children. The 2021 to 2022 Ancestry DNA revelations that connected Una with half-siblings Paula, Lisa, Trevor, and Adrian Bowles created a support network of forgotten children who shared stories of Rocky's brief phone chats promising visits to Trevor that never kept, revealing a consistent pattern of fleeting acknowledgments followed by ghosting. As of November 2025, Una, at age 61, lives privately in Halifax, Nova Scotia, teaching early childhood education at a community center, her stability a direct rebuke to Rocky's chaos. Married to a supportive husband whose name she keeps private, mother to Shayla now in her 30s working as an advocate, and grandmother to several children. Thanks for staying tuned, folks, and hope you enjoyed the video. For more of such content, click on the card showing on the screen.